Hi there, and welcome to the Digital Strategy and Growth Podcast. Here we are. Is my mic okay? I think that's a little bit better. Hi, welcome to the Digital Strategy and Growth Podcast. So, what we'd like to cover on this podcast is how you can optimize digital assets for your business with digital strategy to see growth in your business. That is what it is all about. And I have moved into digital strategy after years being a web designer and helping clients then start to use the website as to the full extent that it could be. And of course, I've become very knowledgeable about digital strategy and how that can work in different businesses. And that's what I really want to bring to this podcast. So today, I really wanted to talk about, 5 essential reasons why you need a great website as the hub of your marketing tool or the hub of your digital presence. And how that could benefit your business. But I ended up backtracking a little bit to needing to talk about what leads are and how you get those for your business. What is a funnel? What is a marketing funnel or a sales funnel? What is a lead? Because essentially every step of the way, the five essential reasons I wanted to say that you need a website and what it can do for you, I was coming back to where a lead sits in your funnel and how you can best serve them through to purchase. So I hope that makes some sense. But what I thought really was, before we go into that, maybe we'll go into that in the next episode, what we really need to cover is what is a lead and how do we get those for my business? Because if you don't have enough leads, then you don't really have a business. You have a hobby, you have something that you like to do, and sometimes people pay you. But across the board, everyone who's advising in business will tell you that sales or bringing people in and having somebody use your service or buy your product and working on that process is absolutely fundamental to surviving in business. And you should be spending 60 to 80% of your time on that process, and then service provision or provision of products, the rest of the time. So it's incredibly important, and yet a lot of people don't really understand the fundamentals of what a lead is and what are the different ways to move them through the funnel process, and what the hell is a funnel anyway, in order to get them, in order to more likely get them to the point of purchase, which brings in revenue. Now, my position as somebody that's advising on digital strategy is that, you have digital assets and digital tools that you should be using in order to do this. But first of all, I think let's just really look at the basics of what a lead is, what a funnel is, and hopefully that's going to help you judge the next potential customer that you interact with and figure out more likely what they need. So we're going to go over some of the basics here of what a lead is, what are the different types of lead, what is a funnel, what are the different types of funnel, and how do we actually put that to good use and increase our sales. So first of all, let's do some definitions, okay? Now, I will say I've been preparing recently a bit of a paper on this. Now, the draft version is currently at 10,000 words, and I will be releasing it as an article on my website, chrisgood.online. So if you want to go a bit more in depth about this, then follow the show notes to my website, and you can have a read of all of the different definitions and some guidance that I have there. But first of all, let's define what is a lead. So if I said to you, we need to bring a lead into your business, you might think that that's anybody who might have an interest or who is a potential customer. But there are some complications in that. And we actually want to start categorizing leads as soon as possible so that we know how to nurture them, how to bring them forwards towards a sale. So a lead initially is anyone who shows intentional interest in your business. So that's not somebody who has visited your website, maybe because they, Okay, I'm going to say a lot of people have a lot of definitions for everything we're going to speak about today. And a portion of what I say is going to address that. But I think I'll try and stay with industry standard understandings. And so, okay, so a lead is anybody who shows intentional interest in your business. So that might be filling out a form or clicking follow on your social media or downloading something, one of your resources. For some reason, they have opted to stay in touch with you and to stay in your orbit. And in doing that, they've often given you permission to get in touch with them for some reason. So if we think of it in terms of a website visitor, a lead is the website visitor who has, committed, who has taken an action to show interest, to step forward, or to show interest in one of your resources. There's something that they are trusting about you that they would take the time to download a resource, for example, or see one of your videos in exchange for an email. So that is more than somebody who has visited your site from the search listings just because they saw you listed there. And that's really important to differentiate, because when we think of it in the sense of different marketing methods and how expensive they are, for example, distributing leaflets around the local neighborhood. I spoke about this on episode 1 of this podcast when I was saying a lot. But that marketing method is just going out there to leads and people who have not indicated any interest in our business at all. Now, if I said that there were 100 people in a room and they all had red cards and green cards, and I asked anyone who was interested in my service or product to hold up a green card, and only 47 of them held up that card, you would then not decide to spend £1 reaching out to all 100 of them, would you? You wouldn't, because there are 53 people who held up a red card saying they have no interest in your business. So it makes no sense whatsoever to commit to a marketing spend to people who have no interest. You would instead want to put that spend towards the green card people. Okay, so with that simple concept in mind, we can start to differentiate between good and bad marketing methods for our business. What we want to do essentially is spend the least amount possible to get that initial filtering of leads and non-leads. Okay, so a lead is somebody who has actually held up a green card, or they have for some reason stumbled across your content or your website, and not only have they done that, but they have taken an action to show interest. What we know there is that they have some sort of need that we might be able to provide for. But that isn't where the categorization ends, okay? So we have a non-lead, let's call it a visitor, we have a lead, but then we can further categorize the people who have stepped in and taken an interest. We can qualify the lead. Now, this is actually one of the points I had about what a website can do for you. It can immediately qualify a lead. But what does that mean? A qualified lead, which we also call a prospect, and you'll hear that term when you get more into the marketing. A qualified lead or a prospect is somebody who actually fits the criteria of your target market. So it might be that they have a particular budget available. It might be that they are in a particular service area. Essentially, there are some, or it might even be, project timeline. They want something more immediate and they're showing some eagerness, and that's what you're focusing on for your lead capture. But a prospect is somebody that fits target audience or target market criteria. Now, you might not know that straight away from anybody that downloads a resource from your website, or even who contacts you and gives you a contact form message. But let's say your contact form, and I'm giving away some of the next episode here. Let's say your contact form says, what is your available budget here? Is it 500 to 1,000? Is it 1,000 to 5,000? Is it 5,000 to 10,000? And you only really want to work with the 5,000 up. Well, once they've given that answer, you have immediately qualified that lead. So from that point onwards, a bit like with the red card and the green card example, you know whether or not to allocate your resources and further expense of time or money to pursuing that lead. So essentially, they are qualified leads. They are a prospect. They are somebody who fits the criteria for further pursuit. Now, by the way, that doesn't mean that there's no need to pursue anyone else who fills in a contact form. The next tier down on the pricing, you might feel that has less priority, but it's worth a bit more nurture. Perhaps you can facilitate something that still gets that interest. The ones that say 500 to 1,000, obviously, you know that that's not going to work for your business. And there are any number of ways that you can handle that. You might hand that off to somebody else and gain favor in your network. But the point is, once you have that qualification information, you're not going to be wasting your own time and resources on that lead from that point. And then, if we're keeping it the most simple in definitions, we actually have the customer who has already used your service or bought your product. And these are actually the highest converting lead that you can have. It's much easier to retain customers that you have and to market fresh to them with your other products or other services or follow-up services. It's much easier to do that. It's much more cost effective to consider them a lead and to ensure that some of your marketing is going out to them to bring them back, to remind them to come back to your business and make use of you. Have you serviced your car this year? We can do that for a discount when we, at the same time that we do your MOT, that sort of thing. Is your hair looking unruly? It's been 3 months since your last haircut. Come on in, we've got a fresh glass of Prosecco waiting for you. These are marketing drives that you can target to your current customers, but you want to keep them current, so treat them as leads. So there we have 4 different categories there, really. We have people that have visited our website and left, or, think of that as a shop or a store, somebody who strolled in, had a look around and they've left, no worries. You then have a lead, somebody who has taken a step in and chosen to take something away with them and, keep in touch with you, remain in your orbit for some sort of reason. Now, again, that could be something like they're following your social media account or maybe even throwing a comment back and forth with you. Some sort of engagement that shows that they are in your orbit. And then, of course, you have the prospect, somebody who is actually taken a step forward. They're thinking of purchase and they've even given you some of the criteria. And you're thinking, okay, this is a good one. If we have a sales team, we'll put them onto sales. But it's certainly someone that we want to start nurturing for an initial discovery call, maybe more human interaction, that increase in resource spend for them. And then, of course, we've got the customer, as we mentioned, very deserving and very wise spending of some of our marketing budget. Okay, some other terms that to quickly run through for leads, which you may have heard of. And in my view, this is more what you find in the corporate lead and funnel lingo, which personally I don't really enjoy. Marketing qualified leads. So this is a prospect who is engaged with your marketing efforts but isn't ready for a sale yet. Okay, so there's that level of engagement. So a prospect. Now these are top of funnel, and we'll talk about what a funnel is so that you can start visualizing what that looks like in your own business. Then we've got sales qualified leads. So they would have been vetted by the sales team. They would have met the criteria essentially and be deemed ready for direct sales time and resources. So again, in my view, you can fit criteria very quickly from a good contact form. Or Daniel Priestley suggests, what is it called? Oh my god, what an idiot! I actually had to Google that. But Daniel Priestley check out scorecards. Okay, so they ask, I think it's about 15 questions, and they get an incredible amount of qualifying criteria so that you know where to place a lead for your sales team or for further nurture. Then we've got a product qualified lead. So you might have heard of this one, PQL. And these are more relevant for things like SaaS and technology companies. And so they are people that have experienced the value through a free trial or a freemium. As a web digital guy, I use a lot of freemium or free initial trials. So I'm often a PQL. And then we have service qualified leads, which is an existing customer who may well be interested in further services and has indicated that. So those are some additional more corporate terms that you may have heard about, and it's helpful for you to know them if you're starting to look into all of this. And then you might have heard of cold leads, or certainly you might have heard of a lead going cold. And a cold lead is someone who may have an awareness of your business, but who has not carried out an intentional action to indicate interest. So it might be somebody that's checking out some of your content. It might be somebody that's, sometimes visiting your site. You might clock that you have, for example, on Google Analytics, a lot of returning visitors, but that's not really reflected in how many people are submitting forms or stepping in for a resource. And that would be a cold lead. They're hanging around, but they're not really performing an action and taking that step forward. And then you have a warm lead, and that's someone who has intentionally shown interest in your business by filling out a form for a resource. So as you can see, there are lots of different terms that all mean the same sort of thing. What it does do is it differentiates between people who are hanging around and a little bit curious. They know you're there and they feel safe for that. And people who have started to use maybe free versions or free resources, maybe at the expense of their email, but they're starting to obviously trust you enough and like you enough that they want to spend time using one of your resources, watching another video, checking out a PDF, trusting that a checklist or template that you give them is sufficient to help them. That means that they at least regard you as credible in the industry or field, and that's actually a step in the right direction. So again, all of those terms, to be honest, pick the ones that you feel are more helpful for you, so that when you meet someone or interact with someone within your business, you can kind of go, all right, you're a prospect, you're a qualified lead. I've got you pegged now. I've got to keep an eye on you, and I've got to find a way for us to talk again. That's a really great insight to have that you get just from understanding these different categorizations. But also, it doesn't just apply to when you are thinking that you want to push for more of a sale. It is also important to understand where somebody is so that you know when not to sell. And this is probably most important. I went to Turkey for my honeymoon this year, and I ended up I stopped going into stores any longer because even though a lot of it obviously is not genuine material, but I stopped going into shops just because I was hassled so much for the sell. It was all like, oh, what would you like? What price? What are you looking for? And, some of it was just helpful intention, but I felt badgered and it was too much. I just wanted to be curious for a while. And so, essentially, I backed away because the approach was too heavy and I just didn't trust it. They seemed a bit too desperate. James Smith talks about sales and or getting purchases as being something more like on a first date. You're not just going to go in and lunge in for the kiss or for anything else. You're certainly not going to propose on a first date because you need to warm everything up first. You need to just spend some time achieving some, familiarity, some comfort, like, know, and trust, as I would say in the business world. And this is something that we really do need to understand. A lead might not have taken a step forward because they're just in that curiosity stage at the moment. They're trying to figure out what they think of us and whether we're credible, whether they even like, know, or trust what we do or what we offer. And while it's important to keep affirming the message that we are worthy of their, we are worthy of credibility, of being regarded as credible, and we're trustworthy. It's not something for us to sell to them and ask them to make a commitment. So, again, to refer to someone else that has a really good insight on this, we'll touch on it a bit later in more depth, I suppose. Daniel Priestley, really, really fantastic. I love his books and his content online, and I would suggest that you do check all of that out, and his scorecards. But he has a rule of 7-11-4, I think it was, and let's have a look at that. So he breaks it down that people nowadays need to consume about 7 hours of your content before they'll feel ready to, trust you and like you and know you and consider you credible. And they would need around 11 touch points. So that's some sort of interaction, might be commenting, might be liking, something like that, or, a bit of a share. It's a step in the right direction. And across 4 platforms, which is a really interesting observation of his, which is that people like to see that you are across different platforms and you have consistent content. But all of that is like me in Turkey, just wanted to have a stroll around the store, start to feel comfortable, explore a couple of things, and make up my own mind, essentially. So that's why it's really quite helpful to understand leads and where they are. It helps us know when to make a push for sale. And it also helps us when to do more of a nurturing and just ensure that they are getting the consistent message that we're there for them, we're credible, we're likable, we're trustworthy. So let's talk about funnels and define these. And again, I find that everybody uses kind of different terminology for these and have different understandings. But there is an overarching truth which can help us picture our own process that we have customers going through. Most businesses actually are a little bit ad hoc. I'm sure that's the term. Haphazard is the one I was going for, about how they handle the entire process from somebody realizing that their business exists to actually becoming a customer. And there isn't much plan or journey planned out at all. And so what happens is a lot of people just fall away that could have become a customer. The idea of the funnel concept is that we can make a plan for any sort of lead wherever they are, and we have an idea of how to push them further down the funnel. So let's further define the funnel. So broadly speaking, a funnel is wide at the top. So the idea is that you would want to put out as many touch points for your business as possible, so that people are at least aware of your business, that it exists, that it provides a service or a product. Most marketing campaigns begin with an awareness campaign, which is basically just about being seen by as many people as possible. That could be in search listings, it could be leaflets around a neighborhood, it could be posters. If you're feeling really flash with cash, you can put up billboards or, mark up your van or your car with an advert, obviously. And it's just about visibility, awareness, being seen. And you cast that out to, the wide top of the funnel. The idea is just, be seen by as many people as possible. Now, a funnel obviously goes narrower as it comes down, and the bottom of the funnel is regarded as the woohoo moment. Okay. Now, again, it's a little bit confusing because you would have heard of marketing funnel and a sales funnel. And if you're a bit confused about what they are or whether they are different, they are different. Essentially, but I think is a bit outdated, and I'll explain this. Essentially, a marketing funnel is down to the point where from visibility or awareness to the point where you might hand it over to sales. So it's when somebody's sales qualified or meeting all the criteria for something like a discovery call, and actual sales approach. And then they would be in the sales funnel. So they go from one funnel to another. I personally hate that. That's never sat well with me, to be honest. I like to think of it more, especially for SMEs, as one longer funnel, which is a marketing and sales funnel, or it's just a marketing funnel. And within that funnel, there is something more suitable to be called sales, more direct human approach. And the bottom of the funnel is what you would call the purchase moment. Now, again, even people talking about marketing and separate sales funnels, they tend to talk about sales being the bottom of the funnel. It just doesn't make sense, to be honest. There are too many terms, and I'll say why in a minute, why I think it's actually really quite outdated as a model. But essentially in a funnel, there's top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. Bottom of funnel is the purchase, the woohoo moment. Top of funnel is broad, get attention for your business. And middle of the funnel is where we're really warming that up and bringing people into the to take a step forward and become a prospect, fit them with criteria. And that's essentially, you can get by understanding that. So go with a one funnel model, and you've got top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel. And essentially it's just pulling them in from interest to action, being a prospect, down to an actual purchase. So I've always preferred, as I mentioned, a single end-to-end funnel that runs from a first visit, visibility, to a loyal advocate. And I really think that suits smaller business entrepreneurs and SMEs essentially, because it's a smaller team. There is no handing off to a sales team. And for most people who are service users for a smaller local business, the idea of starting to build up that rapport and that relationship and then getting handed off to, someone else on a sales call, and it's like, hi, my name's Jerry. How can I help you today? And it's like, well, I've just told this person, it's not like that anymore. We don't appreciate it. And we don't actually have the resources for that as businesses anyway. So somebody doing a gear change into sales talk and putting on the tie, I don't think that works very well anyway. So best to be single funnel marketing to sales, in my opinion. So the general steps of the funnel, let's just quickly go through that, and I won't go in depth on it. We've got awareness, which is where they become aware of your business, top of funnel. Interest and consideration. So in this stage, they're starting to consider their pain points, whether they really, the fact that they need help from you, and they're starting to weigh up whether you can be that provider of help. So this is when we're looking to ensure our brand looks credible, and they can like, know, and trust us. So there's credibility and authority, and then like, know, and trust. That's what we want to influence them with at that stage. And then there's the actual decision stage. So some people might say that this is more sales moment, and that's actually quite right. The goal at this point is quite similar to the last, but is to ensure that they're aware of the value that you are offering. So they're aware of their pain points, they've considered them, they know that you are credible, but now you need to really, bring home to them how valuable this is for them, and maybe bring in some, incentives. And then we've got the actual conversion action, and this just needs to be as frictionless as possible. My wife really liked a drink that we had once, a couple of years back when we went camping, and I wanted to buy it for her for Christmas, and I got in touch with them. It was a local brewery, really, really, lovely people. But the process of actually purchasing the drink was, I got an email, and then I had to take the details off the invoice, the bank payment details, and then go to my phone app, bank app, and then type it all in. And I was having to go back and forth and remember the numbers. If I didn't love her, I would have given up on the process, okay? But it was Christmas. So The conversion action is where so many people lose business. They've done all that work with their leads and then they lose the business because there's too much friction at the point of sale. Amazon did well with a one-click purchase, and we all need to be trying to make it just like that. And then afterwards, just right at the bottom of the funnel, it's the little tubey bit that you stick in the engine when you're putting the oil in. Is loyalty and advocacy. So that's loyal customers who come back to you and also speak to others about you. So that's the typical funnel that you might consider. And as I've just shown, I prefer a one funnel approach. I think that works best. But in my view, the idea of a linear funnel is actually very, very outdated. Now, I'm hitting on quite a long podcast episode here, so I don't want to bore you with it, but you can read more on my view on this blog post that I've mentioned, chrisgood.online. But just to stamp it home, the idea of the linear marketing funnel and sales funnel was really born of an age when there wasn't much availability of either brands and businesses or actually information about the products. So, this is quite an outdated model when people who were looking for a new Hoover or something might actually make an order for someone to come around and demo it and give all of the spiel and then hold the pen out and ensure that they're you don't want to miss out on this, do you? You said that you really value making a good investment in your home, blah, 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 blah. That worked maybe quite a lot because people were already primed for sale. They were that's it's quite an indication of a prospect, really, isn't it, to actually invite someone in to demo your product. But of course, there weren't so many brands available at the time, back then when all of this became the marketing lingo. Again, people were already primed. People were already prospects out of need and a lack of information. The difference is now that somebody can be sitting at a bus stop and realize they need something, and before the bus has arrived, they have checked out 100 brands, all of the reviews, checked out YouTube with product versus product videos. The cost of shopping around is so low, it's non-existent now to customers, that this linear approach really, really doesn't work. And as Daniel Priestley actually commented, there has to be more of a process of people consuming your content, being brand aware, that's what that is, and then actually having interactions and trusting in your credibility and kind of in your customer service. The world is digital now, and what that does is just open up all the customers to 100 brands for whatever they're looking for. And for this very reason, updating everything to a digital form of sales within the funnel is not enough. I think we really need to acknowledge that the process is no longer linear. It's very, very confused. It's back and forth. And you can't just think of somebody as being top of funnel, middle of funnel, near the bottom of the funnel. The process is definitely more on the side of the lead at this point, and you've really got to let them step forward and decide on the purchase or the sale, and give them everything they need at any point that they need so that they can choose you. Again, you don't want to be hassling someone when they're trying to look for a cheap hoodie in Turkey. Let them have a look at what you've got. So that's a little bit about why I feel like the marketing funnel is quite outdated in a awareness to purchase fashion. I don't think that works so much anymore, but it is really important to understand all of these concepts because it does help us visualize our leads, however they're categorized, on a continuous journey towards purchase. Yeah, it's important to understand that so that we can always be influencing them effectively. Now, this is where I came up with my VALOR framework. And as opposed to being focused on the lead and where they are in the funnel, and therefore what I have to do in order to push them towards or manipulate them towards sale. It irks me, to be honest. This instead plans, the VALOR framework instead aims to optimize every part of your business so that they always have what they need for how they feel and what they're looking for. So the stages of the VALOR framework are visibility, very similar to awareness, of course. Authority. So do you have authority signals in your digital presence and always ever present in everything you're communicating to your leads? So on your website, essentially. Like, know, and trust. Do you have content on your site? Do you have content in your email nurturing campaign that establishes like, know, and trust? Well, this is exactly what Daniel Priestley is talking about with his 7-11-4 rule. It's about content that people can explore. They can build up that rapport and that relationship. Content and connection. That's really what they're looking for here. And so it's important to establish that in your digital presence. And yeah, that's where the VALOR framework would really push a lot of content creation. Now, I'll just make a comment there that a lot of that like, know, and trust content is not just existing top of funnel, as this linear process would have. That is for middle of funnel leads, people who are back and forthing between, deciding on whether or not to make a purchase. Ideally, you want to end up with a lead or even a prospect in an email nurturing campaign, and they are just gently given opportunities to purchase one of your resources when it's right for them, but it's not pushed. So let's recap. We've got visibility, authority, like, know, and trust, and this is not happening in a linear fashion, but it's always making sure you're visible, always making sure you are portraying authority and credibility in your field, always making sure that you are building relationship and connection, so like, know, and trust, and then always making sure that your offer is present and it has no friction. So, it's a click and it's a buy. It's a click and I send it to you. And often a lot of the best sale moments are in a slow and gentle build up within an email marketing campaign. So you might have a prospect going from one list to one automated list to another as they're gently warming towards sale. But again, 5 out of the 6 messages are only about visibility, authority, and like, know, and trust. And then the next one might just be, I've got this affordable product for you. It's not my big course that I've told you about and you know about, but this is just an easy one for $29.99. Thought it might help you out with the season that's coming up. Now that is how you gently make a small purchase. And actually Daniel Priestley talks about this. Also have a low ticket, product, which doesn't feel like such a commitment. And then lastly on the VALOR framework is retention. So your digital presence, your digital assets should all be, that there should be an aspect of that geared towards retention of those who have already purchased. So essentially they can go onto an email list, and that would continue to ensure that you are visible, portraying your authority, your like, know, and trust, or maintaining your relationship, and then throwing them an offer now and then that's exclusively for customers who have already purchased from them. So again, it's not the VALOR framework is not a linear sequence, and I've battled with putting that together, but it's always about going around and reinforcing all 5 of those aspects for the completed customer again and again and again. So that's a basic understanding of typical marketing jargon, to be honest, but it is very helpful to understand these different categorizations of a lead so that you can start to understand maybe how you want to treat them or what plan would be in place once they interact with your business or when they're starting to warm up and giving you signals that they are more likely to make a purchase. Essentially, all of this is about having a pre-made plan so you don't have to think about it in place for any moment that a lead wants to progress towards purchase. Now, again, the funnel is a linear, is quite linear. You might have somebody coming straight in at the middle of the funnel or the bottom of the funnel, and they've seen an advert for your site, maybe for the first time, and they phone up and they want to, they are really in need. They have a pain point, and maybe you can help them. Now, without doubt, you should never take that for granted. It's not always the case that they're just going to be like, yep, okay, come on over. They are at least phoning up 2 other people. But the question is, how can you make the rest of this process frictionless? You want to reassure them of your credibility, that you are an authority. You want to reassure that, ensure that they like, know, and trust you, that you can accommodate them, and that they are important to you. But then when it comes to that point of book, buy, or call, you need to really, really ensure that it is frictionless. And that's where I feel that the VALOR framework really does come into its own, because if you have all of those aspects optimized, if your digital presence, if your digital assets are optimized to always represent all aspects of the VALOR framework and support those, then you have that ready to go. You're on the phone to somebody and they're like, yep, I think I would like that. It's like, cool, you've got a digital tool that does that within a minute, and they are already booked in. So yeah, I hope you find that helpful to have an understanding of all of that. And of course, we'll build on that when in the next episode, speak about how a website can assist you with all aspects of your funnel, or obviously with the VALOR framework. To just help you out with a couple of actionable steps, maybe have a look at your website and consider your call to action. So a lot of websites have a big button on it, and it's the main call to action, and it's like, you go to the hero section and it's buy now, or book now, book with us, get your free quote, and it's asking for a real commitment from the customer. And the question here is, how often could you hit a bullseye or get a hole in one? I'm going to guess that you can't be confident of it every time. And it's the same sort of statistics for your website visitors, by the way. Most people are just in the decision-making process. They're not ready to commit. They're not ready to hit book. They're not ready to hit buy, for sure. They're still trying to decide. They're just having a preliminary look. A lot of people don't have prices on their website. I would never, ever walk into a restaurant without having first checked out the general prices of the meals. It just doesn't happen. And yet a lot of people don't even have a ballpark fee or price on their website. It's a barrier to them liking you, knowing you, or trusting you, particularly the trust. If we think about it again, the main call to action on many sites is the big button saying book, buy, call, commit, love me. As James Smith said, it's about, nobody's going to commit to too much on a first date. Now, instead of treating that as your actual call to action, you need to ensure that, at least in principle, your main call to action is actually to cater for the 95% of visitors who are not ready to commit. I'll say that again. Maybe 5% of the people who come to your website are ready to hit that big button and make a commitment and step forward all the way down to the bottom of the funnel. Probably not the case though. So the question is, how do you turn people from a visitor into a prospect? Well, it's not that big blue call to action button. It's something much softer. So here are a few ideas. You just need to keep them in your orbit, and you need to have permission to reach back out to them. 2 ideas I'll run by you. Check if anything like this is on your website. It will increase your conversions. Have a exit pop up. So when they go to exit your website, it pops up and says, hey, you haven't taken your 10% discount code. You'll get this off your first purchase. Would you like us to send it to you? Of course I would. I'll take that because I might come back. You can have something on your pop-up that says, this is only offered once. Most people are going to at least throw their email in there. and you've now got them on your mailing list. And you have permission to reach out to them. So how can you follow this up? Well, you could email them with related offers, things that you know that they were interested in from the page that they were on. And most importantly, you can remind them, hey, your discount code expires in 3 days. Why don't you use it? We've got these products. That's a perfect follow-up. And there will be a high proportion of people that actually do jump on and use that. Let's think of another one for a service-based business. Somebody's trying to find out how they can unblock their drain. You might be the person that they want to use. It might seem counterintuitive to do this, but have something on your drain unblocking page that says, why don't you try it yourself? Get our 5-step checklist on how to unblock your drain. They will exchange their email for this and buzz off, and they'll have the checklist and they'll try and do it themselves. A small number of those people might actually succeed, and they won't call you that time at least. But there are some others who would forget your website name. They might not even check the checklist, but you've got their email. Maybe you've got their number, and you can now follow up with them in 3 days and say, we noticed you downloaded our checklist. How did it go? Is everything okay with your drains? You are top of the list, because not only did you try and help them for free, which helps them with like, know, and trust, not only did you give them some free information, and happy reviews were all over your website for them to see. They were also on the checklist, by the way. And so you have authority and credibility. You're certainly visible because you've just phoned them up or emailed them again. So you've reinforced visibility. And now you're making an offer. Can I help you? Do you need help? Do you have a pain point I can be the solution for? These are very, very, very simple tactics, but you only use them when you have an awareness of the customer journey or marketing funnel, and how a lead, or how you have a website visitor, then you have a lead, then you have a prospect, and then you have a customer. And they all require a different approach. So yeah, absolutely. Instead of going for the bullseye all the time, try and turn a lead into a prospect and ensure that a provision for that is on your website. I'd be interested to see how that goes. So yeah, try it out if it works for you. I'd love to hear your story. And so yeah, comment around here or get in touch with me. I'd love to hear. chrisgood.online. And as I said, I've got a whole lead generation article on my website, which you can look at in more detail, including other tips on digital strategy. So that was a very long one, but yeah, it's a very interesting subject, and it has lots more that we could discuss on all of it. I have a feeling the next episode will be on more website optimizations that would help you with the whole lead to customer process, and how the website is actually at the heart of a really good marketing strategy or funnel, whatever you want to call it. All right, my name is Chris Good. Please do follow, like, subscribe, comment, and get in touch with me if you need any help with your digital strategy. I will catch you again on another episode. Bye-bye.